we've got more that are expected to follow. Meanwhile, Europe is lagging the US in terms of deep technology companies, and that poses a challenge as economic growth is increasingly pinned to digitization. Of course, the fallout and the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank has also dealt a further blow to startups as funding dries up and banks de-risk. So what do future solutions look like? And is regulation, talent, governance, tax, or other incentives the answer? Well, with us, we have three corporate leaders who are tackling some of these issues. We have David Sneddon, the Vice President of Google, and he leads the GTech Professional Services team across the EMEA region. He represents about 21,000 Google employees across the region, and he's one of the company's Irish site leads. Then we have Elizabeth Rossiello. She's the CEO and founder of Aza Finance, which is an established provider of international payment solutions across more than 115 countries. And Amir Marandi, the co-founder and CEO of Zava, a Swedish-based growing European fintech which provides size-agnostic real-time payments processing. Before I turn to our panelists, we do have a polling question. And that is, we want you to answer, what is the most important consideration in locating or relocating a business? And I think you can scan the QR code if you haven't already, and we would love to know what you think is the most important thing. So it looks, access to talent is in the lead, which is actually very interesting, as that is something we're hearing across the board in all industries that I've been talking to. I cover Ireland at Bloomberg, and it constantly comes up that talent is a challenge at the moment, especially in Ireland, where we have almost full employment. And that was the first topic that I was going to turn to for our panelists. Unemployment in the European Economic Area is broadly declining. And one of the things that we frequently hear, as I said, is companies are struggling to attract talent. And even as we're seeing some headline layoffs from large technology companies, of course. So I'm interested in what employers can do, and also what governments can do to help build and sustain the required expertise for European companies to grow and for companies to grow in Europe. So Amir, I'm going to start with you. As an entrepreneur building a company in Europe, what are the challenges when it comes to recruiting and retaining talent? And what do you need to see to overcome them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think the battle of talent is, first of all, it's an international battle. So we're competing with Asia, we're competing with China, we're competing with the US. And I think these topics are way, way larger than just flexibility or the perks that you can offer one another. Because as a tech company, if you look at the business world has solved this, if you're a lead generator, you will receive a kickback for every lead you basically generate. But for us as a tech company to bring in talent, intelligent people outside the EU to Sweden, it's a big hassle. It costs us a lot of money. It's a lot of administrative work, and you sometimes just don't do that. So I would say if we want to have the smartest MIT engineers joining the Swedish ecosystem, we really need to create the incentives for them, right? You cannot tell this engineer to come to this country and promise them that they will be taxed 60% on their stock option programs. So you have to build the incentives in order to attract talent. You have to make it easier to bring intelligent people outside the EU to the EU, because these people will contribute to the further development of these societies. So I would say, I hope our regulators and the governments start to realize it's not a domestic battle between us and another Swedish payments company. It's between us and the rest of the world, and we need to create incentives needed in order to make these people want to come to these regions.
And Elizabeth, what's your experience been And what do you see as the potential for improvement in making people want to come to this region, but also in helping people move across the region? Because I know that you work in different countries.
Right, so we have 5 offices globally, main offices, and another 3 satellite offices. And for us, it's very important to have local teams. So we operate in East, Central, West Africa. We bought a company in South Africa, so brought on 50 people there. But up above the equator, we have offices in Madrid and London. It's almost impossible for us to bring our talent up to the UK. We have 2 licenses to sponsor permits each year, so the maximum we can bring on of non-British talent is 2 a year. And to hire British engineers, it's very difficult to make them come into the office. Post-COVID, even pre-COVID, nobody wants to live in London. It's so expensive for young engineers. So we had to make an exception to our policy, even pre-COVID, that they could be remote. So some of them are in Scotland or maybe other parts of Europe. I think it's hard to have a traditional workforce if you're not paying, no offense, Google salaries or more. So that's a struggle. And what we've seen actually is that we have so much more talent developing in our African offices. 10 years ago, it was very hard to hire a senior engineer, a security, InfoSec professional. Now we see that market really exploding. And, for us, it's important to have cycling of employees through the offices. So we have a lot of employees spend 2 years at different offices and move between to create a really important overall culture. And that free movement is a lot easier between our African offices and even Madrid than it is to the UK. So that's a struggle for us.
That's very interesting. And I think it's a potential for improvement there in making those transitions easier.
Certainly. We've been bringing up two more each year from the UK. The UK has, even post-Brexit, despite inflation, despite housing costs, it does have a cachet with a lot of our team members. They want to live in a big metropolis. The schooling is great. So I think for the employees, there is still some pull for that. But definitely for our employees under 30, they want lifestyle. They want to live, in a place where they have, space. They're near the sun. They want to move from Madrid to Valencia. There's a big internal poll trying to persuade me to open up a Valencia office. So I think, when I was in my 20s, I was working in Canary Wharf. I don't think I ever breathed fresh air or saw the sun, and I was content with that. It's a completely different world that we're living in, especially